Blade Talk with Scab and Joe.
The American experiment requires us all to push the boundaries.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Blade Talk with Scab and Joe. Sit back, relax. We got a pretty good show here.
Please don't forget our U.S. veterans. Growing awareness for veteran suicide. Hashtag 22 a day no more. Veterans, you always have a place here. There is a number in the description of all of my videos for some good folk that can help you if you are in despair. Hello, everyone. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. We are live. Yes, we are live. Welcome, everyone, to Blade Talk with Scab and Joe. My name is Joe from JS Bladecraft, along with my brother and partner, Scab of Choir Boys Outdoors. We are currently live on both our channels, and then obviously it will be posted on both after the live is over. So welcome, everybody. Welcome, one and all. So today is Veterans Day, a day we pay homage to our beloved veterans of this beautiful country. We remember their sacrifices. We understand their struggles. But most importantly, we show them that they're loved, appreciated, and treasured, not just today, but every day. It is very fitting for Scab and I to be doing a Veterans Day special on Blade Talk, as on our individual channels, we dedicate the inclusion and appreciation for our vets with each and every video, and of course, hashtag 22 a day. Scab and I wanted to make this Blade Talk a special one for you all by inviting not only some great patriots and veterans, but also founders of the great American knife companies. And as far as I'm concerned, some of the best knives in the world. Scab and I welcome Mr. Greg Medford of Medford Knife and Tool, Eric Hansen of Phobos Knives, Curtis Iovito of Spartan Blades, and of course, the godfather of American knives, Mr. Ernest Emerson. So if you are a veteran, if you love knives, if you are American, and everything and all the above, welcome to our Veterans Day special of Blade Talk with Scab and Joe. Welcome, chat room. So now let's get the show rolling and let's invite everyone into the room. So there's quite a few of you. So let me try to do it one by one. So we got Ernie, we got Curtis, we got Scab, we got Eric, and we have Greg. Welcome, boys. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, brother.
This was awesome. Listen, let's do this. Let's just go around real quick. Everybody introduce yourself, and then we'll jump right into it. Eric, start with you.
Happy Veterans Day, everybody. I just hope you're reaching out to your favorite vet. Let me say that just as humbly and as respectful as I can, strength and honor to everyone. Some of us obviously gave something, but there's some that never came home and they gave it all. So that's the first thing I want to say. But for me, it was just, I started as a soldier, 17. My dad didn't want me to go in. I did what I wanted to do. We are as kids, and it went from there. I went into SF very, very early in my career. I was 24 years old when the first time I walked in the team room door, and I learned about knives. From those that were around me, and just having that search and needing a good one. I had a sergeant major at our regimental dinner say that he could measure. You could look at the knife that a Green Beret carried and kind of tell what kind of guy he was, and that really, really resonated with me. Just what it takes to own and keep a good blade. What kind of blade they get, what kind of standards they set for themselves, how they take care of it, et cetera, et cetera. But in a nutshell, that's pretty much how it got started for me. And I made one for myself with Ray Ennis and Doug Stryker, and they had Montauk at the time, and I called Doug and I was like, hey man, I got this design, can you make it for me? He's like, yeah, sure. We'll do it. And I was like, okay. So they did, and then I got it back, and And then I wanted a smaller one. And Ray, if you know him, he's a great dude, grinds like a maniac, but he wasn't fast enough, and so it just ended up making my own. I made one of my own. I talked to my dad, and my great grandfather started a machine shop, and that's still going strong in Toledo. I mean, our family, we don't own it anymore. It was just bought out by a Swedish company or a Swiss company, and he ran the heat treat for like 36 years plus for Dana Corporation, either in Detroit or in Toledo. Excuse me, and then out of Fort Wayne with Eaton. I think it's Eaton, and he gave me some good advice, and just being around steel and all my life, and guys who knew how to heat treat it and work it, and here we are, some 30 odd years later, and hey, bro, can you make me one? Yeah, and that turned into 2, and then 4, and then 6, and then boom, here it is. So I guess that's a quick down and dirty, and if that works, but
that works.
I digress.
Greg, introduce yourself.
I'm Greg Medford.
Hello, Greg Medford.
Good having you. Greg,
One in every crowd.
A quick question for you, Greg. I said this because I just didn't know. I know you were in the Marine Corps. You are a combat vet, and you're based in Arizona. I got this wrong last time, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I don't make too big a deal out of it because it doesn't qualify you for shit making knives.
I got you. But I'll tell you one thing that interests me about your story, and then we'll move forward. It stuck with me about how you used to find World War II Japanese samurai swords.
Yeah.
And then made sure that some got back where you could. And that stuck with me, man. One thing that all of you guys you all have some cool stuff that I hope we can talk about. But Greg, give us just a quick, man, just a couple minutes on how you got started.
Okay. Well, Ernie, I don't know. Ernie, I don't know Ernie's story at all. I know these two SF dudes look like they spent a whole lot of time in the Army. Ernie, how long were you in the military for?
I was not in the military. I want to be upfront about that with everybody.
Okay. So I wasn't sure before I talk out of school. So
no, sir.
I'm just regular old fucking grunt ass Marine, door kicking machine gun guy. I carried a saw, and I was in the Gulf War. I wasn't in some big protracted badass Iwo Jima battle. I had a great adventure. I love the Marine Corps, and like my life, I have the gift for letting the bullshit of my life go, and I don't carry my bullshit, and I carry the best of everything. So my 4 years in the Marine Corps, which is a whole lot of government hurry up and wait admin bullshit, I was not great at that. I was, when we ended up in the Middle East, they were like, oh, look at you. Where did you come from? So I was kind of made for that chaos environment, and I was made for a meritocracy. So I was not made for spit shining boots and marching up and down the square, as Monty Python said.
Amen, bro.
So if I'd had any goddamn guidance, I'd have gone in Army so I could grow a beard and be in special forces if they would have taken me, because I like languages and I like doing stuff by myself, and the scarier the better. But I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps, punched out, bounced all around. I was an airshow pilot for years. Went to college, have a degree in philosophy, background in mechanical engineering and chemistry, pretty deep background in theology, pilgrimage to the Middle East, spent some time living in some monasteries and bouncing around there, and then ended up out here in Arizona. I had martial arts schools for years. I taught Ed Parker's Kempo Karate for years, and I trained with this guy named Huck Planis, and he was one of Ed Parker's senior guys. Kind of got into knife work a little bit. I know that everybody bristles at this, but I never really was into like knife fighting. I just love knives. I like sharp stuff, and it seems like I always was using a pocket knife for something all the time, and everybody was always borrowing a pocket knife. So I watched a movie. I watched a Quentin Tarantino film. Literally, it was Inglourious Bastards. Aldo Rain was carving that swastika in those Nazis' foreheads. And I just Googled. I'm like, I want to get that knife. So I start looking around, and you can't get the knife. And so I found somebody who said, "Oh, I'll make you the knife. How much?" $2,800. I said, "Oh shit, I'm gonna make that knife." So I called up Burger King. I bought a grinder that day. I rented a building the next day. I started welding tables on day 3. Day 4, I kind of started my business plan. My grinder showed up. I had tables and grinder. Maxed out my credit card to get a heat treat oven from Paragon. I had a heat treat oven, a grinder, and some tables, and you can make knives. Got some paracord, and I just started cutting stuff up. And everybody thought I was batshit crazy. And about a week into this, I've got my first 10 knives laid out on the table, and I'm just like, man, I'm going to go broke. It's the first month. I'm not going to pay my mortgage. I'm so screwed. It was 2010, right? And a dude knocks on the door, and I had put this, you guys have seen my little shield with the M in it. I just put that on the door, and it just said, knife nut. Dude knocks on the door and walks in, and I remember he said, "What's going on in here?" And I just had the 3 tables and the oven. There's hardly any tools. I had tools for making airplanes. So I had cleared out my hangar of all my airplane making tools, and they were like lined up, you know. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm making knives." He says, "Well, can I buy one?" I said, "Sure. How much are they?" And I was like, "These are all $500. And he says, "I'll take them all." And I said, "Well, I guess I'm in the knife business." So that's how it happened.
Wow. That's good, bro.
It's good that you got that knock on the door. We'll start with a knock on the door, right?
Yeah, I literally rented the building to this old guy whose wife was going to kick his ass because I had no money. And I said, "Listen, I've never not paid somebody. So just let me in. I'll make some money. I'll pay you first, your first position." And he said, "Oh, my wife is going to kill me. I can't believe I'm going to do this." I said, "It's been empty for a year. What do you care?" And so a week after he let me go in, I called him up, stroked off hundies for him. He took the money and he said, "Oh, I can't wait to wave this money in front of my wife's nose." And then he said, he looked at the money, and I remember this, so I'll never forget this. He handed the money back to me, and he goes, "Kid," he goes, "I want you to make it. You're going to need the cash." And he said, "Just pay me at the end of the month." And that's how it went down.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Cool. Love it.
Well, I want to address this up front. Ernie is not a veteran. However, having made so many knives for different U.S. entities, we respect that. The other thing is, not only has Ernie made knives for different branches and different squads, he showed them how to use them. So I wanted him here. Joe wanted him here. One, he is the Godfather. But I should have opened with that. So Ernie, we're glad to have you. What I want to do is, Curtis, you're going to go last. Ernie, just do a quick rundown, and then we'll jump to Curtis.
Well, first thing I got to say is this: in all these stories, there's one thing that comes to mind. Michael Walker, long time ago, told me. He said, "Ernie, if you don't want to make your 10,000th knife, don't ever make your first knife." And I know you guys know exactly what he was saying, because it's kind of like that. And for me, I just grew up in a hunting, fishing environment. I'm from northern Wisconsin, and my whole family, they were all military on down the line. I kind of missed out. It was Vietnam was just winding down when I got my draft notice, actually, and I was number 2 on the draft and started to be processed in. And Greg, this will please you maybe, but and sorry, you guys in green, sorry, but that Marine Corps dress blue uniform just had me by the balls, and I was like, if I'm going in, I'm going in as a Marine. And sure enough, old Jimmy Carter, he just it was either him or Reagan came in, and they said it's all over. So we didn't get processed in. And so when I say I missed the boat, at that point I was in school still, so I finished out my degree and all that. But anyway, long story. The thing about the knives with me was it's the same story. I know I can do that. It wasn't a matter of I know I can do it better. It's just I know I can do that. I know I could make a knife. And it kind of basically was that, you know, I can do this. And sure enough, it happened. And as far as what Scab you were saying about the military, I have to say this every single time. If it wasn't for, and again, pardon me to all you guys, if it wasn't for the U.S. Navy SEALs and the Navy, I wouldn't have a knife company, because they were there at the beginning with me, and they were my harshest critics and my most ardent supporters. And so I had some real cold water splashed on my face a few times about what I thought was a good knife, coming from guys that really did know what a good knife was. And so I listened, and I guess I was an open book or a sponge or whatever you want to call it. And things just went off from there. And you know, people ask me when you're going to retire, and I always tell them, look, I haven't worked a damn day in the last 40 years, because if you love what you're doing, it's not a job. And I always tell people this, and I'll finish with this. I'd be making knives if nobody ever even bought one, and I just have a whole garage full of knives sitting in boxes. So there you have it.
Excellent.
Well, I guess I'm next, huh? So, Ernie, I got to tell you, when I got to Okinawa, I was in a unit there. It's called C11, and I went down to supply, and they were issuing pocket knives. And I was like, well, this is fantastic. And they issued me, I don't know if you remember making these. They were custom CQC 6s.
I do remember.
And I remember they were handing them out like chem lights, you know. So I got one, you know, got a little dull, so I turned it in. They gave me another one. And man, I regret not saying I lost the damn thing and put it in my sock drawer, because I know what they're worth now. But you know, at the time, I think I turned my last one in to see what they're going to give me next, and they gave me a Spyderco. So yeah, you were involved in my history there a little bit. So
thank you very much.
For me, I was a Marine for 4 years, and guarded nukes down in Charleston, South Carolina. It was horrible, horrible duty. I was a young single kid. I'd cash my paycheck, put it in my pocket, and go to Charleston, South Carolina, and found a wife down there. Greg is kind of opposite for me. I loved the Marine Corps, even the spit and polish shit. I mean, I was a barracks Marine, right? So I was going to re-enlist. You know, I was going to be coming out of the Marine Corps someday. I was sure of it, you know. But I had a squad leader said, "Why are you taking leave before you re-enlist?" I said, "Well, I'd like to take a vacation." He goes, "Don't do that. Get out of the Marine Corps like we all did." And they used to do this all the time. Get out of the Marine Corps, take some free leave, and then sign right back up and come right back in. I was like, that's not a bad idea. And while I was out, they passed a Grand Rubman budget cuts. I couldn't get back in the Marine Corps.
Oh,
I was heartbroken. I didn't know shit about the Army. All I was ever told is they're stupid and they suck, right? They're not good at anything. I found out later in life they had more amphibious landings than the Marine Corps, but you know. Anyway. Yeah. So I don't know anything about the Army, but I know I'm going to go in because I love the Marine Corps. I figured it had to be close. So I said, I went to the recruiter. I was a smart guy, right? I said, 1, you're going to send me to airborne school. 2, you're going to put me in infantry. And 3, I'm going to keep my E4 rank because I've been a corporal 2 years. And the recruiter just said, well, let me go check. He went in the next room, laughed his ass off, came back out and said, sure, we'll give you that. You know, nobody wanted to join infantry. So went in the Army. My first day in the Army, I was a Marine. I didn't go to basic or AIT. I just switched uniforms. So it was a bit of culture shock. You know, I went to airborne school because I had guaranteed 82nd Airborne because I didn't know anything else about the Army. So I get to airborne school. They see I'm an E4. They tell me to march guys to chow. I'm like, aye, base, hour, mark. And they're like, dude, you sound like a Marine. Learn to speak English. They put some little girl in charge of formation. So I knew I was going to have a hard time in the Army. But recruiter from the Ranger Battalion came by. I ended up going to RIP, Ranger Indoctrination Program. Jumped into Panama, 2nd Ranger Battalion. Did a few years Ranger Battalion. Went long-range surveillance unit, which I really liked. Went from there. I was at Fort Lewis for several years. I go to the Q course. They tell me I'm going to first group. They send me right back to Fort Lewis. So I did a whole lot of time at Fort Lewis. Eventually went to Okie to C11 over there, CT unit. My last tour in Army was at SODIC, which is a Special Forces Sniper School. Worked there for 4 years, which is where I met my current partner. Now, you guys might notice Mark's not here. You know, we're kind of freaking frack together. He doesn't do social media. He hates it. He thinks it's for 13-year-old girls, and he's 80% right. So, so that's where Mark and I met. We were in C1 together. Worked at sniper school. We got out of the Army. Worked for a ballistic armor corporation. Made him a buttload of money. And when it was time, bonus time, they told us to go pound sand. So, we said, hey, I think we're going to go into business for ourselves. We thought we'd build sniper rifles. In interim, we looked at the firearms industry. It was kind of a lot of backstabbing. We had a lot of friends in that industry, and I had made custom knives for my friends and group for years. And it was just like Eric said, you make one for yourself.
Yeah.
And then buddy's like, hey, can you make me one?
Yeah.
The guy didn't pay me. And it kind of tumbled to a hobby. They sent me to Okinawa. I couldn't bring my tools with me, so I had a little bit of a hiatus. I had an opportunity to go to Indonesia and meet a guy named Teddy Carding, who makes the knives for their special forces. He's the one that kind of put the bug in my head that I might be able to make a living doing it. But Mark and I decided we'd make knives. We didn't know a lot about the industry, so we called Chris Reeve on the phone and said, hey, we're in the Army. We want to make knives. And he goes, well, I think you're idiots, but if you'd like to, come to Blade Show. I'll take a look at what you got. So we did that. We looked at our knives, critiqued them for us, said, why don't you come on out to Idaho and we'll show you how to really make knives. We took him up on it, showed up at his front door. Ann Reeve answered the door, and she's like, can I help you? And I was like, yeah, your husband said we could stay at your house. And she's like, well, it's news to me. So she brought us in, made us breakfast. We ended up becoming pretty fast friends. They help us avoid pitfalls in the beginning. Chris Reeve told me that he goes, hey, man, being a Green Beret will help you sell knives. But if you make shit, your moniker will be the Green Berets who make shit, right? And it always stuck with us. He's like, make good knives and they'll sell themselves. And he was right. So in the interim, I was going overseas, working as a contractor, doing some stuff over there. I did that for 6 years and then phased myself into Spartan Blades with Mark. We started out in pre-Civil War mule barn on his property. It's all we had. We didn't have a whole lot of cash or money. So we made our first batch of knives, took them to Blade Show West, and it just kind of started tumbling from there. That was in 2008. In 2019, we had become pretty good friends with the folks over at K-Bar, John Stitt, Joe Bradley. And we went up there to help them out with some tooling and just to hang out with them for a bit. And I made a joke, hey, if you ever want to buy a knife company in North Carolina, give me a call. It was a joke. Yeah, a few months later, they called and said, yeah, we're interested. So long story short, we sold half the company to K-Bar. We've teamed up. We've been partners since 2019, and it worked out it's worked out great. So we're still growing. We had a good year this year, and finally, after all that work, I was able to make it onto Blade Talk with Joe and Scab, which is the highlight of my life and my career. So.
You arrived. I think that's it. When you make it here, you've arrived, or you've done it yourself. Hey, let's do this. Let's just have kind of a free flowing conversation. I personally feel like we're kind of in the golden age of knives. I know Greg's going to disagree with that because that's what he does, and I love him for it. But y'all give some of these guys. Joe and I both see new knife makers all the time. American knife makers, younger guys, older guys getting into it. Y'all just kind of go around the table and give them some advice. How do you keep the quality up, et cetera, et cetera? Just if you were talking to a young knife maker, just kind of go around the room. I don't care who goes first, but there's a lot of guys watching this that have a passion for it, but need a little direction. Somebody start off.
Anybody.
Okay, I'll start off. I get guys call me all the time, and I bet you guys probably do too. Hey, I've got a knife design. I want to start a knife company.
Yeah.
I need some help. And I always tell people there's no secrets of knife making. I mean, I've been to Greg's shop, his house. We've hung out together. Rick Hinder, we all get along because there's no secrets of knife making. They're sharp, pointy, they're heat treated, right? And everybody does things a little different, which appeals to different people. But I'll have guys come up to me and say, hey, man, I've got this knife and I've been making them and, I'm selling them as fast as I can make them, but I'm not making any money. And, first thing I tell guys, I ask them, what's the cost in the knife? What does it cost you to make it? And they usually say, it cost me $150. I'm like, well, what's shop rate where you live? And they're like, oh, it's $60 an hour. like, how many hours you got in a knife? And they're like, 4. I'm like, okay, why you give money away? And a lot of times, guys, they're so into knife making and grinding and learning. They tell themselves all the time, I'm basically giving that money away in my labor away so I can learn. And I tell them, listen, if you make a knife, it's sharp, it's pointy, and it cuts shit, and it's heat treated, stop giving it away. I see it all the time. Guys, they're struggling, they struggle, and they struggle. And it's because they don't take the time to place value on their time, and they don't do their books and keep control of what their costs are. And then the other thing is, a lot of times guys aren't honest with themselves about what they're good at and what they're not. You got to identify what you're good at and do that to the best of your ability. And if you're not good at something, hire someone to do it for you, or have them come in and teach you how to do it, or partner with them. But I see these guys, they try to make, 300 knives by themselves, and they're working 14-hour days, and they're losing money as they go. So, there's a knife making part and there's a business part. And if you want to be in the knife business, you got to learn a business part.
That's a tough thing about it. Is just basically that there's guys out there that have, and we see it all the time. They have a know-how. They know they want to do it. They have a passion for it, and they're good at what they do. But the business end of it is kind of that's the hump that they can't. It's very difficult for them to cross.
Yeah.
I have a quote from Chris Reeve, actually. First time we talked about knives. He goes, Greg, anybody can make an awesome knife, but to make 100 of them the same is fucking impossible. Yeah. Making a bunch of knives the same is harder than making parts for the F-22. I have friends across the street from my factory who that's all they do is make aerospace shit. And I've had them try and make knife parts for me, and they just shake their head because the knife world is different. We make stuff to feel and sound and look. We don't make stuff to fit. The rest of the world's making stuff to fit. It's got these tolerances, and it needs to work. But knives, they're like a fetish. It's like man jewelry that has to have the right sound and the feel, and it's got to be everything. It's a sensory creation. The biggest thing I see is people are lazy. They don't want to do the work, or they outsource it, and then they wonder why their quality sucks, and then everybody beats them up for it online. I think one of the worst things you can do to your brand, I think it's one of the hardest things to deal with is anything to do with having your stuff made in China. I think it is a death mark on your brand. I think it's really hard. I know I'm going to get some disagreement. I'm very vocal in the industry. Everybody knows my position about it. I recommend young people all the time, if you don't have the ability to make it, then you haven't fucking earned it. Make it. If you're just going to draw cute pictures in CAD and send them off to China and have them send you a batch of 300 knives in a box, you're not in the knife business. I'm sorry, and you're not a knife maker. End of story. I'm snooty about it. Make your stuff. Make it in America and have our morals matter. Or pull up chalks and move over there and make stuff for them. It's hard making knives. It's expensive. The lessons are hard. And, you can do 1,000 knives perfectly and you do one wrong. The 999 guys who love their knife won't do a video about it for the most part. They'll just quietly hung along using their knife. And somebody's got who got something that's got wiggle, or maybe they got some sass from one of your employees on the phone. They'll just blow up the internet. So, my advice is make your stuff yourself. You can control your quality that way. Have awesome customer service, because we all know great companies who are plagued by bad customer service. And remember, it's these people you're dealing with, and you have to connect with the people while you sell the stuff to them and they buy it from you, and you've got to stand by your product. It's hard to do it when you didn't even make it. You don't have parts. So, America.
Ernie, you've been doing this for a minute. Throw something out there, buddy.
Are you talking to me? I'm sorry. I'm having a little trouble.
Yeah, Ernest. Yeah.
Ernie, I'm so always looking at my bad.
No worries. Greg, I'm with you, man. I hate the fucking Chinese government. I hate their whole stance. I hate everything that they're trying to do to our country. And I'm doing everything I can to get that word out. So, yeah, that's a big deal. But when you ask the original question about what do you tell a young knife maker, I always tell them, make what's in your heart, because there's plenty of people out there that are going to see that and say, wow, that's exactly what I've been looking for. So I trying to give them that encouragement, because it really has to be, you don't want to make something you don't like. I mean, for God's sakes, then it's a job. This is a passion driven endeavor. And I also tell them the same thing that everybody here, I think, agrees with, is get prepared to work really hard, probably harder than any other job outside of the military, any other job that you've ever had in the civilian sector, because two things happen. You get caught up in it, and those shows that you want to go to and show your knives, that's a time clock, and it's clicking and ticking every hour of the day. And it's the old story. I know when the blade show's going to be every single year, and I'm working up to the final hour before the blade show. So, I just tell them, look, you got to love what you're doing. And it's a matter of really just kind of expressing yourself. I'm a tool guy. And I didn't mention I was a prototype tool and die maker and I guess all of the machinist apprenticeships that I went through, getting up the ladder. And I'm a tool guy, so I like things that work. I like simple things. And I always tell them, look, if you want to make fancy stuff, then go with fancy. If you want to make tools, like I always say, I've got my grandfather's S-wing hammers, and they drive a nail today just the same, as good as they did the day he put them in his hands. And that's the kind of thing that I think, a knife maker or a budding knife maker should be aware of. Find your place. It's tough to live in both worlds, being what I would call an art knife guy and a tool maker. Some guys have done it successfully, but for me, I can't tell them a lot about the business part of it, except if it's a penny, it's worth a penny. And if it's $1 million, it's worth $1 million, but that $1 million is a whole lot of pennies. So every single penny counts. Keep track of everything that you do. Because again, you don't want to go to your wife and say, honey, I got to hit the retirement account because I want to buy a new grinder. You want to make this something that pays for itself. And don't let it encroach on your family, because I'm telling you, it can be an all-consuming endeavor, and I know that for a fact. And my dear wife, who stood by me all this time, she knows that for a fact too, and she's put up with me. So, again, it's one of those jobs. It isn't like you go and punch in over at UPS and come home at night. You're working when it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and you're under a dim light bulb trying to get those knives done. So. Those are the kind of things that I tell them. Just be aware of that, be ready for it. And if you're up to the task, then jump the hell in and swim as fast as you can, because it's a lot of fun.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Eric's, you've had to fight because you're OEM with White River, and you've had to keep control, and you've come out of your pocket. So talk a little bit about that too. Because that's one of the things. You have some great designs, some great knives, and I know you fought hard to keep them here in the States. Talk a little bit about that.
Everything that from Greg and Mr. Avito and Ernie and you guys, everything you've said really, really resonates. I've kind of been down that road. I mean, I originally talked with John Kamenga, and he gave me some really, really good advice. And he tried to send me to some of the, the smaller guys to partner with and to work with. I mean, originally when I got out and stopped working with the agency, I had my own company and on the security side, and all we did was our 30-second elevator pitch was we get people. We go and we get people. And from like 2005 until the year 2014, we recovered, repatriated, captured, extracted like over 538 folks all across international borders, and only 11 of those were Americans, right? And so that's kind of where our niche, my niche was. But as me and my partners, I couldn't go back overseas my body's broke, the Parkinson's is taking over, and I was left scrambling with what the fuck am I going to do? And I had one of our program managers where we'd worked before say, you know, Eric, this is just not it. You're getting older and your body's breaking down. And so I kind of had to find this thing that I wanted to do. And it just translated back into what Greg was saying or what Vito was saying was the, I took a little hiatus to go work around the world and kind of broke that back open. And LT Wright, he sent me to Bark River and Mike Stewart. And, Doug Stryker where he's at with Montauk, he split from Ray. He's not even in Knives anymore. He owns a marketing company, and he was like, Eric, the stuff you want to do just screams production. And so, and he was like, and he's right. Greg's right. If you can make customs, but it's really difficult to make money, or feed your family. You can do it, but you're gonna struggle, so you have to really look at how do I bring that paycheck into the house and be able to contribute. And so, after I talked to LT and I talked to Mike and I went up there and unfortunately I didn't get a talk from Chris Reeves, who, the beginning of what I try to do, I got in with some bad actors and it eats up your capital. You may work with someone and you'll do, my first year we did $500,000 in retail sales, and I came out with that net negative. That person, they gave me an $11,000 check for steel that I had bought for them so they could make knives. And it just, so you really have to have a good product, a good design, and do what you love. And that's something I leaned back and talked to my dad, and it was like, I knew I could draw, and it's one of those things that never shuts off. Like my wife, she'll tell me now, she's like, because I'll get up in the middle of the night, she's like, Eric Hansen, if you open that fucking computer, you need to go to your office, because and you're right, Ernie, it just 1:30 at night, 2:00, and you're down there, you're either sharpening, whether I'm going to do it on a belt or on a Wii, or kind of depends on what the blade is. Those hours, they don't stop, and it can consume you. And so it's tough. I mean, to make the jump from the garage to your or to a production company is it's a struggle. It really is. And we have not made that, we have not completely bridged that gap yet. And unfortunately, the first few years of this have really it's been tough, and the Kamangas, all I can say as far as using them as an OEMer, they're top notch. I feel very, very blessed to have been able to be introduced, and have John Sr. Put up with my bullshit, because I know if you have a standard, and you can speak up and make waves, and guys will be like, what the fuck? Because what the fuck costs money? When you're like, okay, this is not this and this is not that, and I've had guys say, well, Eric, how would you do that? Well, I did it with a file. I hand filed in the Persian swedge, but here's how I think we should do it with with a wheel or an end mill. If you're going to put it on a top, or however you're going to do it, I want to use robots or whatever, whatever it is to machine it. And that's one thing that we're known for is the guys who make kydex for us or our customers. There's a handful of them out there that'll say, no, you don't need to send me your knife because I've already got it, and they're pretty much identical, and so that's and then you become a pain in the ass. So I try to do our fixed blades as close to a folder standard as we possibly can, and that takes time. It takes extra runs, extra minutes, extra turn time. So, and it costs money. Every minute on an end, it costs money, and so you just have to be prepared to be able to make that jump. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm an SF guy. I was very good at being an 18 Delta. I throw my bag down the ground, and guys look and say, "Oh God, thank God it's you," But I'm not really that business. I'm not a business guy, but I've learned a lot and try to do the best I can and go from there. But I think the quality of what we're putting out, it kind of shows, where we're at. I've had some customs go on eBay and for $1,100, and I was shocked. I was just like, you're kidding me, right? And so being able to work with Skittles or Jim or Jim Stewart or Mike Stewart or those guys, because I learned how to convex there. Ray all he did was hollow grind everything, but so it's a journey. It takes time, and we're pretty much right here about the 10-year mark, going on 10 years, and it's I still got a long way to go. I mean, I learn something new every single day.
You're coming up on 10 years now, huh? Already.
Yeah. Well, yeah, from 2015. Yeah. I mean, we're nine and some odd years. I mean, I didn't get introduced to the Kamangas. I think it was 2017. We went to the shop up in Ohio, and I worked there. I mean, I was at Bark River for like almost a year up in the UP, and if anybody knows that backside story, it is what it is. Just I mean, I learned a lot, and we came out of there, and it's a Shark Tank to be where I'm at and to make that jump, that world under the underbelly of the knife industry can be, because no one signs a contract. No one will, no one wants to put their money where their mouth is. They want to put your money where your mouth is. And it's tough to put $100,000, or 50 G's, down for a knife, and then have the 50, the other 50 at the other end when it comes out from the OEMer, so a lot of what I do now, like all the custom stuff, I'll do it here at the shop in Tennessee downstairs, and all the production stuff we do up in Michigan. We're yeah. Go ahead, Amber.
Are you having somebody else make your folders for you?
Well, right now, what we're doing,
Who's making your folders?
Nobody's making them right now.
Okay,
and that's what I'm in the hunt. Yeah, go ahead.
When we get off here, call me, because I have a factory, and that's what I do all day long. I have 50 people who make knives. Everything I can stop from going overseas is like a badge of courage. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, dude. And that's kind of been the struggle. I mean, because we have an NDA with Best Tech, and yeah, go ahead, bro.
If you've got a market and you can sell them, I can make them, and probably faster than anybody you'll talk to.
Yeah, and yeah, that's cool. Yeah, please.
Eric, we can sell the hell out of them. I can sell them left and right.
Eric, You know, both of you guys, there's a lot of people hearing these numbers and they're like, what are they bitching about? That's a lot of money. If you can't do it, I don't think people understand sometimes how knives are priced. We base everything off cost, right? And then you do the multiples. But, you know, most dealers get 30 to 50 to Keystone, 50% they make on a knife. And if they buy from a distributor, that distributor needs his 15% of what it is.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for people to understand everybody in the knife industry, from the sellers to the resellers to your online dealers, they all make more on a single knife than we do. And we make them.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
And that's really the truth. And most, you know, I've had some guys or a handful of guys throughout the last like 2018, 19-ish time frame, obviously before COVID, they, you know, call me on the phone. They're like, bro. And I'm like, hey man, it's fucking tough. And no one, and what I'm fighting with right now is I'm trying to just consistently get the cash flow every month to meet the, you know, the SBA, to get a government loan, because they want to see 2 years of $20,000 a month every month for 24 months. And that's your throughput and your cash flow. And if you can't do that, you just, it's like, if I could do that, I wouldn't need you, you know, and so it's really tough to kind of make that jump. And so,
Eric, can I interrupt you again?
Yeah, please, man, go ahead.
Listen, man, I've done this a bunch of times, and I always love helping people out that are American makers. So do you have, like, I know this may not be on topic for everybody. I don't
No, it's all good.
You're good. Company. Like, do you have a business model and plan? If you want, I would love to talk to you offline, because you don't, if you have to borrow money to make knives, your model needs to be adjusted. You can't borrow money to make knives. You get your teeth kicked in. Yeah, so
that's where we're at, right?
Yeah. So
and so I'm here to listen and learn, man.
When we get offline, nobody wants to hear a fucking business talk. But when we get offline, maybe Scab and the boys can give you my info, and I'd love to chat with you, because I mean, I've literally helped a bunch of dudes in the business that everybody collects their knives now. That are, you know, that are in the last 15 years newer. And I'm happy to do it, and I generally won't steer you wrong. And I know Curtis can do that also, but he's more. He may not want to give you all the time. I'm pretty like, yeah, whatever. I'll talk to you about it.
Eric, I'll give you all the time you need.
Yeah,
I knew he would.
You don't want to talk to him or Ernie. They're dead dickhead. Hey, Greg, let me be the bad
brother,
guy.
Right? You're an SF brother. I got you.
Yeah.
I got you, bro. I hear you guys. No, and what's kind of funny is one of the things that you said, Greg, and when I first was going to go in, I went to the Marine Corps recruiter, and my entire, like, all the way down to like World War I, my grandma on my mom's side came from Poland.
Don't feel bad. I mean, you're an American hero. Don't feel bad.
No. and so real quick smoke, and I just was kind of looking at the dude. I'm like, okay, and he was like, what the fuck? Do you think I'm fucking lying to you? And I was like, well, I don't really think you're telling me. Well, get the fuck out of my office. And I went over. There was the Army. It was when there was a Navy window, you know, the Marine window, the Army window, the Air Force window. And I went, and the Army guy was like, let me guess, you just came from over there. I was like, yeah. And he goes,
sounds about right.
Dude fills my quota every month. And I was like, okay, I totally get it, you know. So, but, you know, I saw that movie, The Green Beret, follow me, you know, and that's kind of where I wanted to go eventually was SF. So that's what I pursued. But, you know, the rest is history. So 29 years later, you know, but yeah, everything you guys have said so far just resonates. It all resonates.
Well, hold up one second, Eric, because I was going to kind of avoid it, but I'm not, because I want an answer. And I think you guys are the guys who can give me the answer, because from our end, let me just say this. I'm appreciative to all of you. I've got all 4 of your knives right there. I carry at least 1, if not 2 of them every day. Carry as much American as I can, and I love it. The thing is this: when we talk about the American worker, you're looking at one. I get up at 4:30 every fucking morning, right? go to work. And I don't mind doing that. I love doing that. As long as I can do it, I'll do it and enjoy doing it. But how do we get, because I've got guys who watch this channel who bust their nuts day in and day out. How do we get affordable knives? And I'm not talking about people cutting their prices, because that's not what it's about. But as a knife industry, how do we get it to where guys who bust their nuts can buy a knife? And I'm legit asking.
Listen, here's my question.
Keep energy. Here we go.
Curtis has done a bunch of stuff. I've done a bunch of stuff. I invested a couple $1 million this year. Here's my question to you. What is that number? What's an affordable American-made knife cost? What do you think that number is, Scab?
Bubba, see, that's why I'm asking you guys. It's hard. That's my thing. It's hard. It's like
I think I can. Let me say, because Curtis, I've heard you say.
Okay, we're gonna put you on a time limit.
I've heard you say that, especially like when you guys got you kind of you and K-Bar came together, that they gave you, yeah, sure, there's some great knife companies out there, but the average soldier can't reach that price point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where we're at right now. And it's what a lot of what drives, I think, the American machinist, if you will. If you have a guy who's in it, like Greg's an independent. If you have a machine shop that's used to making stuff for the aerospace industry, they can take a chunk of aluminum, put some basic work into it, chuck it in the tumbler, and that aluminum might be $2 or $3 for that chunk of aluminum, and they're gonna get $80, $100, $120, $140 for it as a finished piece. And they can do like Kevin Fournier. I mean, he's up in the UP right down the street from Bark River, Metalness. And he's like, Eric, why the fuck do I need to make knives? I can do 6,000 of those every month for, and so that's the struggle. And then these guys that do own, machine shops, and they're making knives, a lot of them are making their own knives. And so,
or you teach them how to make them, then they start making them.
Yep. And that's kind of
Greg.
Right.
I want to
Exactly.
answer Scab's question. Because
Me too.
Here's the number, okay? Kids walking around with a fucking $800 iPhone in their pocket. Okay? So I don't want to hear what a soldier can afford and not afford, because they're all carrying iPhones, right?
Yep.
So can
I have opinions, bro. Don't get me wrong.
I'm answering Scab's question. Can they afford a $200 knife?
Probably. If you were to ask me, if you're asking me legit, and I'm asking you legit, and I'm asking Ernan,
Soldier will drink that on a Saturday.
I would, to me, I know what I can afford, and I can afford one of yours. But what I'm telling you is, I see it at about 150 up for a good folder, but you should make your money. I don't want you to think that I'm against you or want you to cut your price. I want some legit answers.
I'm asking the question to let you frame it, okay? So let's say a knife costs a pocket knife costs $50 to make. That has to go into a two-step distribution model in this country. Okay? So if it costs me $50 to make it, and I sell it to, let's say, Blue Ridge Knives, they're gonna want to make their 16 to 18%. I can't just, if I'm going to make it for 50 and sell it for 100, after I have about $10 million worth of machinery and stuff in my building. Okay. So someone's got to flooring load all of that. So if I have a $50 cost knife, I have to sell it for about $120 to kind of pay for the make the enterprise worth doing.
Sure.
Guys, Ernie, you've done big stuff before. Curtis, I know you are. Am I in the ballpark with you guys?
Actually, with your math, I was going to say with shipping, you're about $112 already before anybody touches it.
Okay, so I said $120 to a distributor. Now a distributor's generally getting something at about half what the retail consumer's touching it at. So you're at $240 on a $50 cost knife. Now, the question is, Ernie, can you straight up, now look, this may be pulling your pants down too much, so you can pass on the answer, but can you straight up make an American-made knife for $50?
No.
Not even in the same universe.
No.
Fuck no.
It's
And
not even.
that's the other side of where I was going to go with that.
So my point is, Americans have a disconnect between what it really costs, and what the price is. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to have, like, the screws on my knives cost more than the Chinese knockoff of my knife put in a package and one-off sent from Ching Chong Kinkachong to Des Moines, Iowa, for less than the knife and the shipping is less than what my hardware costs. So people say, why don't you just make a cheap, why can't you do it? I have an American-made line. They're all around $200. I can't even believe I pulled it out of my ass. But you can't do frame locks. You can't do axis radius locks. It can't have a bunch of machining on it that needs to be flipped over. It's got to be a little bare bones.
Well, who wants to race to the bottom anyway?
Yeah.
Well,
the guys that make shit. I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, it's
I don't have to be that guy.
Right.
Well, one thing I want to add is the in defense of the quality of American-made knives. You can buy, because I've been there. I've bought knives my entire life, and they've broken and got messed up and all this and that. Excuse me, guys. But in defense of the American-made knife, there are plenty of people that'll buy one of your knives, and they're going to give that knife to their son or their grandson. That's the big fucking difference between a Chinese-made knife and what we make right here in America and the knives that you guys are making right now.
Yeah.
So what is the value? And Scab, I'm not busting your balls, but what's the value for a knife that can be that Estwing hammer that I still have, that's 100 fucking years old, and it still works as good as the day I bought it? That's what we're able to produce in America. That's why I believe that, there's plenty of good what I would call boutique industries, if you will. We're not building cars in Detroit. We're not building YF-22s or anything like that. We're building knives. They're tools, but by God, they're the best fucking tools, the best knives in the world. And I have no trouble saying that, and I'm proud to be part of it. And so as far as what is the value, what does a good knife cost? You know what? If it costs me $500 and my fucking grandkid's going to be able to use it just like I did, then I spent my money really well. So, that's how I feel about those pricing things and all that. And, we don't, like you said, what does it cost to make a knife? It's damned expensive here. We all pay American wages and all of the taxes and all of the bullshit that's heaped on us. And quite honestly, I'm not bitching, but I'm in California right now, and that's an oppressive place to run a business. So we're in the midst of trying to kind of extricate ourselves and move on some other place. But anyway, back to your discussion. That's just my opinion.
Well, the other side of the coin is, and I'll just be honest with you, 85% of the people that buy knives, they don't give a shit where it's made.
Yeah,
They
don't give a flying fuck.
You know what? That's our job, to make that well known. Then
I don't disagree with you. It's just, and I know this is
not about disagreeing. I'm asking. See, this is what people want to hear.
Yeah, well,
this is the shit I hear every day. And first and foremost, Ernie, this is the Vindicator. You know how much I love it. My son carries one. Carries it every day on duty. He was on duty today, and I made sure. And when he's ready, I'll sharpen it up. And I carry mine every day. But my thing is this, guys. I have zero problem when you come to me. I'm a big boy with thick skin, but I want you guys to put it out there. You know what I'm saying? It's not about being argumentative at all. It's about saying, hey, I don't want anybody going broke. So that
the world's a big place too. The world's a big place, and we don't just sell knives in the United States either. That's the other thing.
Right.
For me, for that knife you have in your pocket, if you buy that knife in the EU, it's almost double.
Yeah.
And they love their knives there. We sell knives to Germans, and we sell them all over the world, right?
Yeah.
But again, these are the discussions we need to have.
Import taxes. Yeah, you got the import taxes, tariffs. You got a VAT. When a dealer buys one of our knives in Europe, they pay the import tax, then they pay the VAT, and they don't get that VAT back till they sell that knife. So if they sit on that inventory, that inventory that costs double what it costs the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, they start getting really, really picky. We go over to the EWA show, Germany, every year. And the guys know the names of our knives. They know them. They have them. They have a few in their collection here and there. They'd like to own 50 of them, or they'd like to buy that first one. But when a Spartan Harzi folder costs them $800, they just can't do it. So we make the best knives we can. We've made them here in the U.S. for years. We do a gold, silver, and bronze. Gold's made in our shop. Silver's made by guys over in New York, up at K-Bar, and we make some in Taiwan. People are getting ready to be invaded, right? We hope not. But I think if you're honest about how they're made, it's like Eric talking about who's making his knives, where he's making them, the money you spend.
Yeah.
If you're honest with the customer and you let them know where it's made, you don't bullshit them, and you take care of people,
right?
You can do that. I mean, we're going to make knives.
Let me add this.
Right.
Sorry to cut you off, Curtis. Eric, the main thing I believe in your case is the faith in yourself, the faith in what you're doing. You know that for a fact because you've been there and done that.
Yeah.
It is that faith in what you think you're going to be able to do, and you just get the fuck out there and do it.
Yeah.
It's a tough road. There ain't no question about it. But you know what? You mentioned earlier, and I'm sorry I don't know a lot of the history of some of the stuff that you're talking about, but shed those motherfuckers that are the bad eggs and get on with some good fucking squared away people. There are good people out there.
Yeah.
I've been blessed in knowing quite a few of them. They're all the ones sitting right here tonight are those people. Get the fuck rid of those a-holes and get good people around you. You know that. Keep the faith, and it'll happen, because that faith will drive you all the way to the end of the fucking chariot race, man.
Yeah, I got you, brother.
Greg, this will be the first folder that you'll make for Eric. It's the mini. So that'll be the first one you're making right there.
Duly noted.
It'll be called the mini Scab. So
the mini. No,
let's continue down the path, guys, because this is what I want. And I want a free flowing, but I want some answers too. And you guys are the guys to give them. We could have went and got 3 or 4 guys that started making them and there ain't a damn thing wrong with it. That's great. It's awesome. But we're seeing more and more and more guys making knives. And I just made a video the other day. There's some of these guys that don't need to be selling them. So when I say give them some advice, I'm talking about quality control, not just price. Yeah. And I'll be down. I want you to make your money, and I want you all to be successful. We had Eric on here. We've had him on twice, and I love him to death. He's got some great designs. I wanted him with you guys who really, really are big time in the industry. But talk about Curtis, talk about some QC, and then maybe Ernie and then Greg, talk about like the QC that you put into it. And what you will accept and what you will not accept.
You just have to make them to the tightest tolerances. And if you're going to have somebody else make it, and I know you are, when somebody's making something for you, they're going to make it as shitty as you allow them to make it.
Yeah.
100%.
That's the answer.
I know we don't want to talk politics, but is one of the greatest quotes for knife making I've ever heard. Donald Trump said, "You don't get what you expect, you get what you inspect." Right. It's one of my favorite lines.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. When I was somewhere else, I was there at the factory every day.
Mm-hmm.
Either grinding or doing something. I was something every day, and then I had my little shop in their corporate house, in the garage at their corporate house. I just kind of took that over. Zoe was over there before. He still had some stuff in the garage there, and I would come back and there was no QC there. And I would say, hey, I want to do it. You need to do it this way. Well, show me how the fuck you're going to do that. So I would either grind it or you know, whether it was either the jimping or whatever it may have been. And he'd be like, okay. And I'd turn around, I'd find out 2 days later that it didn't get done, that he went right back in there and said, no, we're not doing that. And that's
See you later. Bye on that guy, man.
Yeah. We like I said, we're not there anymore, but,
let me ask Ernie something real quick, because this goes back way before I got into YouTube and that. Ernie, I wanted to ask you this, and I hope that I have the freedom to. But one thing that I've always heard about you is when it comes to your MSRP, people will sell it for what you tell them to sell it, or you'll pull it from them. Is that true?
Well, that used to be true, but we've gone full direct sales to the customer, so we don't even have to deal with that anymore. But yeah, we were brutal about it, and I lost some friends over that. People, you know, because I've always viewed everyone that we deal with as a friend first, and a business partner, or whatever you want to call it, associate after that. Because if I can't have you as a friend, I don't want to do business with you. So that's just the bottom line. But yeah, we were brutal about it, but we had that map pricing thing going on. And, but you just got to say, this is it. I don't have you can't cross the line. You cross the line, we're done. And I want to add one thing that also is when we were talking about having OEM guys do it. I came out of the aerospace industry, and we made satellites, and those satellites, there was no replacing the parts on them. Once they took off on the rocket, it better work, or it was, you know, 25, 40, 50, 60, $150 million down the drain. And one of the things that, so the quality, when I came out of that industry, it was plus or minus 0.3 of a thousandth was a normal, that was a normal tolerance that I dealt with. I came into starting to make the knives and all this and that, and was hand grinding them, like you're mentioning, you know, how do you do this? What do you want on the knife? And you hand grind it and all that. But the thing that's important is when you deal with OEM manufacturers, they'll get a blueprint from an aerospace source, and it's got to be dead on, or it's rejected, boom, out the door. As knife makers, and I've been there, oh God, I needed these so effing bad. Shit, we'll take them. You can't do that. You'll go down that black fucking hole if you do that.
Yeah.
But the other thing you got to always remember is this. Look, this isn't an aerospace part, but by God, it is a tight, close tolerance part. Mm-hmm. And the OEM guys that are just machine shops that are doing work, when you walk out the door, it's like, it's just a knife part. Yeah, it's not something for a.
That's right.
Or for
a the other thing, as far as quality,
you gotta educate them, right, Curtis?
Yeah, as far as quality, look at where tolerances matter on a knife, and where they really matter, you take care of those. I mean, you can have people OEM parts for you, have them make your lock a few thousandths too far out, and then you adjust them. Because, I mean, we only do 2 parts at a time for a folder, because I don't like lengths of knives, because things tend to get off. We do a super thick tooling. I'll do 300 knives. You know, I'll sit down with 100, put 100 together, and they'll fall right together. And those last 10 will take me 4 freaking hours to fit the locks. Excuse me. Yeah. If there's things that require tight tolerances like locks, learn how to do it, and you do just that part. You know, figure out what you're good at, what you're not, what you can do. Yeah. Look at where the points of failure are. It's like improving your hit probability on a target, right? Get a natural point of aim, and you relax and you shoot. Anything you can do to up your hit probability on good parts, maybe you take over that portion of it. Or you let people make the parts for you, but you do the fitting. And if things are out, let them know. I mean, when we do a new batch of folding, like Harsey folders, we'll take every part off and test it and make sure it drops right in the blade. Then we'll do another one, we'll do another one, then we do every 2, then we do every 5.
Yeah.
And when we know we're good, we'll run them out. But if you're going to have somebody manufacture for you, let them do the parts of, like the profiling and stuff like that. You do the fitting. You'll probably have a higher hit probability on having good locks and something that's going to last a while. And then eliminate anything that's not necessary. I mean, just as an example, we used to order steel from Crucible. We had it shipped to a surface grinder. They would surface it for us. They would send us the sheet here. We would run it over to a water jet cutter, have them water jet cut it, go pick it up, bring it back, put it on the machine and start machining. Well, over time, we realized, you know what? I think our steel company needs to get a water jet cutter. And they did. And now they send us blanks. So I cut down all that process in the middle, right? My shipping weight and cost is down. We talked about, Ernie talked about pennies adding up to $1 million. Those little things, anything you can do in between to reduce cost, to consolidate things, to have one person do two things instead of two people doing one. It really, we do our costing down to the sticker on the box. My partner, Mark, he's a genius when it comes to that stuff. How many those white rags you order from Uline, how many of those white rags go to make 10 knives? We literally did a time study. We know how many white rags it takes, how many belts it takes to keep a knife sharp without heating the edge of that blade. We did time studies and all that. And then you go out and look for guys that have cheaper belts of the same brand. Chop it down, chop the cost down, get the cost down, and then make, the MAP pricing. We do the same thing. Make people pay what the knife costs you to make, and so that you can stay in business and make a profit. I remember we made our first batch of knives, and we sat down and did the math, and like, these things are going to be $325. I just got out of the Army. It's like, we're out of business. Who's going to pay $325 for a fixed blade knife? I'm a cheap bastard. Well, it's a lot of people, because even then I didn't realize what it would take to do knives on a production basis. I used to make them by hand. So I learned along with everybody else. Make them pay for it based on your cost. Yeah. And if they don't want to pay for it, well, let them go buy a cheap Chinese knife, sell it to somebody else.
Yeah. Piggybacking off of that, because now listen, I've been looking at the chat throughout all these conversations, and especially for what Greg said, what Ernie said, and there are people out there that, there's a lot of, and Scab knows, we're surrounded by it all the time. There's real knife collectors and users that have a passion and have a belief in buying American knives. Let me just show you some things in the chat here. He says, until the trap takes us. No joke. I quit going out for lunch and just pack food for work to save up and buy a Medford once every couple of years because USA knives are that important.
Glad to help him with his diet.
I'd rather have a $135 phone, no television at home, to be able to afford $800 to $1,000 American knife. That's really what I like to do. It's we're surrounded by it all the time. Scab, you see it all the time. There's people that basically just, they have a belief in it, and these are your customers. These are people that and having a show like this, guys, and just being real. And this is I'm enjoying listening to you guys. I'm learning a lot. I think everybody else in the chat room, in the chat, is just basically taking a lot of pride in what you guys are saying, and they're voicing in the chat as well. But doing this and getting this all out there and being transparent, I think is so great for the community to hear it from you guys.
Yeah,
and understand it.
There's something else that drives and it confuses. I think it confuses knife makers and companies all the time. Bigger companies already know this, but there's two consumers. You have commodity consumers and you have aficionado consumers. And then you've got brand fans, and they kind of, brand fans are a whole different animal. But your commodity consumer is what Curtis is talking about. Like, they don't care where the knife's made. That's the biggest market. So my company's trying to answer, how do I jump into that pool and play in that pool for the commodity consumer? Because when times are tough, where interest rates hit 10% on a second mortgage like they are right now, when you've got all of that going and gas is $5 a gallon, value becomes a paradigm for, instead of 92, it becomes a value paradigm for 98% of buyers. My entire company, the whole brand that a few people know about, it's because of aficionado lunatics who will pay, almost like whatever, they're that really niche aficionado. They're not just buying your average person doesn't know the difference between a Carrera GT, a 911 Turbo, a Turbo S, a 911, or a Carrera. They're just saying, "Oh, I'm going to go get a Porsche." I'm trying to find a way to cater to that customer with my new Main Street knives. But my Medford knives, it's a Porsche 918. It's for fucking lunatics. And fortunately, there's a bunch of those in the United States. But if you try to apply the logic to one to the other crowd, or the making for one to the other crowd, either way, you kind of mix your manufacturing message. And I don't have any partners. I make it all myself.
Yeah.
So,
Greg, I want to ask you a question.
yes, sir.
I see that Les Paul sitting on the wall behind you. Was that the first guitar that you ever bought?
No.
Yes, indeed. It was not. So when you bought your first guitar, did you at some point go, someday I want to own a Les Paul, a real Les Paul?
Ernie, I'm a lunatic.
I'm a lunatic too, brother.
I've always bought the nicest thing I can get, and I wait until I have the money. When I was buying airplanes, I bought the coolest airplane I could get. When I went for my first Porsche, it was a 911 Turbo. When I got my first piano, it was a Steinway. Like I wait, and then I get badass, and I keep it forever.
Well, you know what? That is the key to these new markets. People like Eric that you're talking about, all this stuff, is you want to excite people about your brand, and they may not. It's a tough row. I mean, honest, that's a tough row to hoe for a while. But by God, if you play those cards and you keep them close to your vest, and you do the right thing every single time, you're going to educate people. You're going to excite them, and they're going to go buy a what I call a hardware store knife, but they're going to say, "God, I sure want one of those knives made by him, or a knife made by this company," or whatever. And eventually they'll come around. It's like, if you look at there's a lot of similarities in the watch community and the camera community and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody at some point wants to have one of those top of the line products. And the thing is just to set those sights and keep that fire burning.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead, bro.
I feel like an ambassador. And I know I can be a little polarizing for people that are pussies or that wear skinny jeans, but in general, I feel like I'm an ambassador for the United States of America. And Curtis, I'm not talking down. You guys have got some international stuff. I'm not a troglodyte. I'm not mad at international people and all of that.
Oh, no.
I'm trying to push a boulder over a hill that has rolled back down over the top of all of us Americans. And I'm trying to, one person at a time, I try to convert to the idea of American made. And buying American for the sake of American, that's not a good reason. Buying American because we're better for a variety of reasons, that's a good reason. And then as America, America's not done a good job. Ernie, you're saying do the right thing every time. America's not done a good job at doing the right thing every time. We have fucked up everywhere. So we've got to require it from our nation. We've got to stand for that red, white, and blue that goes on the side of my box. It's got to stand for something. It's why I'm so demanding of my government and so critical. It's why I'm so demanding of my countrymen, because I want it to stand for something. Because when my grandfather, who's off the boat from Greece, when he talked about America, he had to take his handkerchief out and wipe his eyes.
Yeah.
And every one of you guys that are more my age, we all grew up around World War II, guys. And if you heard them talk about our country, what they saw going on in Europe, and they're, fuck Europe and their fucking VAT tax. What they saw go on in Europe over there, what those people let happen over there was unconscionable, and it brought tears to old men's eyes when I was a kid. I remember all that stuff. And I remember when this country absolutely stood for something, and it's taking care of people and taking care of the water. And
Greg, to your point, Scab asked, how do you make a more affordable knife?
Yeah,
the answer is
because this is all great and I'll wave the flag and all that, but I work with guys that make $12, $13, $14. And I'm not
what I'm getting ready to address. That's what I'm getting ready to address.
Here's the thing: you can't. I want them to have the best they can have. But I also got videos of them cutting aluminum cans and everything else. So that's the thing. I'm just asking, what can we do?
I'll tell you right now.
Fire
I'll
away,
tell you
sir.
right now.
I'm listening.
So our cost is our cost. You know, steel's a
Right.
commodity, right?
Yep.
There's nobody price gouging here. You know, our industry is down 18 to 20% right now
Oh,
across
yeah.
the board.
It's really
Ontario
dropped off.
knives, they're gone. Most of the knife makers I talk to are barely making it. The way we make an affordable knife is with cheap energy, by not letting crap knives come into this country from China, right? Good fiscal policy. That's how it happens. You know, how do we normally fix this country? Cheap energy in a war. Well, we've been fighting for 20 years. We can start with cheap energy.
You know,
right?
I want to answer the question though. I make 18 knives that cost $200. I make 10 fixed blades with G10 surface machine handles and top grain leather cowhide sheaths. I make 10 fixed blades, and I make 4 folders, 2 versions of each, all $200. I don't know how else to do it. I can't do it any less than that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Are you
don't know
selling
how you
direct?
can do that, actually.
Direct, Greg, or
What's that, Ernie?
I said, I don't know how you can do that. You're doing something magic there, which I applaud you for, because it's tougher than shit.
Yeah.
To,
Well, and like here's like we've been ready to go to put out our folder for a fucking a year, right? And I couldn't get on the board with anybody here in the States, so the guys that I talk to every day, Vega, Scott, or Sean, those, they were like, well, what about doing it with Best Tech or Rio or Riat? And I was like, okay, let's talk to them. And so, because I had no intention of ever going overseas or having it globally sourced for those reasons. I mean, I saw concerts at Joe Louis Arena and Cobo, and been to Detroit and seen that whole industry, and watched my dad heat treat stuff in Dana and et cetera, and all those years in the 80s, and understanding what American made was about. And so, but here I'm looking at samples, and I'm not here to stomp anybody's dick. It's just the stuff that, and then speaking with representatives who are from the US, like with Bessa, we'll just use them as an example. They've had American guys go over there and say, okay, here's how you're supposed to do it. And then, and so what they're making is just out. It's a good product.
Mm-hmm.
And so hear me out. And, but therein lies the problem. Can you, and that's why I haven't done it. Because I don't know.
There is no.
I'm hearing what you're saying. It's just like, do we make a folder overseas, or do we do it here in the United States? And you talk to Hogue, talk to Jim, great dude, man. He's like, Eric, I can't put you on him. I can't make a jig for you for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Greg.
Eric, can I ask you how you sell your knives?
Well, we were going through Blue Ridge, and what I want to do now is we've just redone our website, and it was finally finished last week, and we're still doing our store, and I want to sell direct.
Okay. I was going to suggest, and it's what we did when we started out.
Yeah.
Direct to consumer is how you're going to make your bank to build infrastructure to do more knives.
Right. I understand. Right. Correct.
Ernie hit on it. He's saying, a lot of what we do it's a lot like watches. And I just was reading something the other day, and they're saying Rolex is doing a direct to consumer store in China. Mont Blanc is going direct to consumer. A lot of luxury bands are going direct to consumer. Why? Because that margin's there. Everybody.
Yeah.
Not to go beyond that, but
listen,
my strong recommendation: anything you can sell yourself, sell it and get that full margin until it makes sense to start.
Yeah.
Right.
Dealers do help. If they earn their margin, they market for you, and you develop those great relationships. But in the beginning, I'd sell everything you can yourself.
And
Yeah, that's
If
what we're gonna
anybody's
do.
watching this, go buy one of his knives, man.
it's also a cycle, right? Right now
Yeah.
it's a low tide, so everybody's
Yeah.
cutting each other's throats. And
Mhm.
I tell everybody, and I've told a lot of dealers, I'm like, hey, calm the fuck down. This is
Yeah.
going to settle down.
Yeah.
Let's not all slit
Mhm.
each other's throats while it's a little rough out here.
Yeah.
We're going to get through this, and we all still want to be here doing business with each other.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't slit your own throat, making desperate. The best thing you can do to increase cash flow is decrease employees, work on your sales, and work on your payment terms. Right? Like it's not very complicated. And then when things are slow, you check your bottom line a little bit more. When things get busy, you push your top line a little bit more.
Yeah, we started our company in 2008, the month of the economic downturn.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you,
Yeah.
Eric,
Yeah.
how do you become SF? Not by being the strongest, the brightest, but you just don't fucking quit, right?
Yeah.
And I know
yeah.
you have that in you.
Nothing in
And
my
I know
life.
what you did. I know what you did afterwards. I know you have it in you. If you can
Yeah.
make it now in a down market, because the knife industry is down 18 to 20% right now. You make it through this, those smaller guys are going to go away, and you'll be amazed at what happens.
Well, and here, how I've had guys with some of the debt that how I'm not divorced. It's like, what the fuck? My wife is like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And so, I mean, I get it, so it's just, I owe money, but what can we do? You just got to ride it out and just continue to click on and make it day to day. So, we're still here. I have, again, as humbly and respectfully as I can say, honestly, I am feeling good about what we're doing. We're just sitting here talking, chatting about it.
Yeah, this is great, Eric. Let me just get to this super chat here.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
It's been. I didn't stay at it for a while. I got to get it in. So, Sean, thank you for the donate. All these years, how did we know? And this is whoever wants to answer this. All these years, how did we know that those steals from overseas actually what the stamp said, or actually what the stamp said? Like, how do we know we are actually getting 440 back in the early 1990s from the cheap imports? It was par for the course. Anybody want to tackle that?
You don't know. It's fucking China.
No, you don't.
That's it.
You don't know.
Let me tell you a quick story, guys. Because we were working with customs and whatever the imports and all that stuff one time, and they told me a story about a whole bunch of silverware that came over from China, and they wanted it with a Geiger counter, and it was radioactive because they were making it from steel that was from recovered nuclear submarines.
Oh my God!
Yeah, and it got rejected, of course, but you don't know. They're not going to tell you what the hell they're doing. But I've got to say one thing, and again, this goes back to when we were talking about knife makers and what do you tell a knife maker? One thing that I think is important, and Eric, I would challenge you on this for sure. You need to set a goal. Where do you want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Do you want to be Gerber? Do you want to be Spartaco? Do you want to be Emerson? Do you want to be a boutique? And again, you know Paul Reed Smith, Greg. He's a boutique guitar manufacturer that expanded out and had stuff done overseas and things like that. But you got to have that. If you set that down and say, okay, this is my goal, and then you look back, and this, I'm preaching to the choir. I know this for 100%. Been through. You set that goal, then you go and you do everything in your power to move towards that goal. Then you stop and reevaluate, and you say, okay, is everything that I'm doing in the furtherance of that goal? And if it's not, I have to stop doing that, or I have to change my goal. But if you don't have that goal set ahead, you're a little bit out of the.
I get that, and I agree with you, Ernie. And it's something I had heard from one of the commanders a long time ago. He said every goal has a road, and if you're not going down that road, you're not going to that goal.
Yeah.
So and that kind of refines it, or kind of tightens up your shot group even more.
Oh, yeah.
So if it's And if you get to a place where there's a fork in the road or a roadblock,
Yep.
there's a way around it, through it, whatever.
Greg, are we doing a cooking show now or no?
Can I
One
interrupt?
of your cooking
Yeah,
shows?
tear it up, bro.
Listen, I want to give a shout out to all the veterans out there. Go buy a fucking knife. It'll make you feel good deep down inside. And listen, enough all you white people. I got to get off here. I've been an hour and a half, and I've been hitting all day, and my throat's dying. I fucking love you guys, but I got to. Ernie, I want to hang with you. We've never hung out before. I just want to hang with you.
Anytime, any place.
I was disappointed when your beautiful daughter married somebody else. That's all I have to say.
He's a good man too, I must say. So both of them got married.
I'm sure he is. But you guys, I gotta go. I love you guys, but I gotta bounce.
I'll call you, brother.
Great to meet you, buddy.
See you
I'll
guys.
give you a ring, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah.
Now we can talk shit about him.
I told you he was a quitter.
Yeah,
You can't count on that guy.
walking
So,
guys.
I love him. Can't help it.
Let's do this because we have been on a minute and I've enjoyed it. But the thing is this, and Greg touched on it. How do we bring it back? We work together. That's my whole thing here. I got a video coming up probably in the next 2 weeks if this one company don't step up, and I don't want to do that, man. It's an American company, but they shit on people. I think we work together and we figure out a way to do it to get everybody. Everybody.
You know who does it well? Who does it well is the Italians.
Yeah.
They have a consortium. They're all in the same town. They do what they're good at for each other, and they put out some good product. And I've been over there, talked to those guys. You guys know the guy. You meet them at shows. You know them, Giovanni and Johnny. Those guys. They figured it out. They put a consortium together.
That's interesting.
And I've tell you, I've talked to a few makers. I'm not going to say any names, 3 or 4. It's been considered. I'll tell you that. But then you hold each other to high standards too. Right?
Yeah, right.
That's how they do it.
But that's called the mafia. It's in their blood.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you, and I think that there's so much out there as far as good ideas or guys that make good stuff that are trying to make that jump, and not everybody's going to be able to do it. I feel fortunate to have been able to been introduced, and then some guy, they look at what you're doing. Like when I first met the Kamingas, I took 6 customs up to their, 6 different knives and said, okay, and I showed John the computer and where what I was doing, and he was like, dude, there was a company in here last week and they didn't have it. This is wired-tight, squared away. You know what I mean? And so I think it's really about the company that you keep around you and what you don't allow. And that's why we left where we were, and then another place very, very quickly. But sometimes you get tied in financially, and you just can't right away extricate yourself.
Yeah, sure.
The whole point of this too, Eric, was to get you and some people. There's going to be some big things come from this. And let me just say this. It's not like Eric struggles with knives. He's got some of the best. His Tier 1 BC and Magna Cut's one of the best fixed blades I've ever reviewed. The Alaris, and that's a fact. But Ernie, I wanted to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you all, but this is an old Uncle Henry Schrade. This is the last knife I had that was my grandfather's.
Yep.
What would this knife cost today?
I would say a knife like that probably going to run you $150, $170 if you were to buy it brand new. Is that correct?
I would think so. And my point here is this: you cannot drop your standard. You cannot go out of business trying to make knives. But my thing is with all of and Greg, and I love Greg because it's not about being outspoken. He's passionate. I don't want to bail around people that aren't passionate. Not when it comes to this. Put too much time, too much effort. I don't mind disagreeing with anyone, but I want them to be passionate, and you guys are. Now, Ernie, your stuff, your folders, where's your price range right now?
I'd say we're anywhere from about 250 up to about 350, kind of that average for most of our models. If we do a special run of something that's we consider a little exotic, it'll be a little bit more than that. But we found a good place. And again, when I was talking to you, Eric, and don't
Yeah.
misread me. You don't need my advice because you're already on the track, but deciding out who you want to be and where you want to be, that's a huge thing. Because I said we've had a lot of, let's say, in the past 30 years of the company and 40 years of my 45 years of my career, I've had a lot of offers. And you know what, man, I'm telling you, there's something about owning what you own and
Right.
keeping it your own.
Yeah.
Don't sell that. Don't sell the farm to anybody, man. Try and keep it. We were self-funded from the very beginning. And I was lucky because I started with just custom knives by themselves, but I took every penny of that and reinvested it. That bought me a new grinder. That bought me a new bench grinder. That bought me a bandsaw. But where I'm going with it is I knew we could have been a lot larger than we are because we had a lot of we've had a ton of offers. And there's two stories I want to tell you. One was when we were about 3 or 4 years into the Emerson knives. The vice president from Colt Industries wanted to buy our company. And first they wanted to have us make knives for Colt firearms. And the guy said, Ernie, part of this contract is going to be if you don't fulfill our quotas, we can come in and force you to make only our knives and not make your knives for sale to the public and all that. And I said, well, that ain't going to happen. And he looked at me and he said, Ernie, he goes, you do not want to argue with the company that buys paper by the boxcar full. And I said, you know what? You're damn right I don't. And you're going to go right out the door right now because I don't need this. And he goes, Ernie, this is worth $1 million to you. I said, I'm not after $1 million.
Yeah.
I'm after having my knife company. And he was an arrogant prick. So that's being said.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You got to be able to walk away. You really do. And I mean, fucking walk away, because there's going to be another door that opens and another opportunity and another good person out there that you're going to just have. That's gold. We call them gold. We've had people that we've had in our life, in our business and everything. They were gold, but they're out there. So, and again, I don't think you're sitting around with a bottle of Jack Daniels and a 45 or anything like that. But where I'm going with it is just, get those good people and ferret out the bad ones and get on with your bad self and make those fucking knives. Because if your knives are selling and selling and selling, then you're on the right track. You just got to find that way to make them.
Yeah.
Make them.
Ernie,
Eric, you're one step away, Eric. You're one step away because you got a good product.
I appreciate it. Yeah. And I think with what I design and the stuff that I've done in the custom shop and trying to, okay, here's what I want to do with the OEM or whatever. And then I'm not saying you got to hold the Kamanga's feet to the fire, because you do, you don't, but I mean, they're outstanding. I mean, I don't have a complaint. And if there's been a problem, I've been able to call John Jr. and say, hey man, what are we doing here? And it's been corrected, right on time, on target. And so there's no angst at all there. And I've had, and that's something I used to say when we had the security company in the past. And Eric Prince, I mean, one of the things he said, he goes, Eric, if you're going to own your own company, you need a good lawyer, because you're going to get sued. and because there's the sharks there, they're out there. And so that was my thing is for whenever we go into a meeting is one of the things I'd say right before we walked in, or we'd have our little powwow and at breakfast that morning before we go into a big whatever it may be, and say, okay, if I say we're going to get up and walk, we walk, and we done it. I've been there, so I know. I understand what you're describing, and I don't want to sell this.
Were you at Blackwater? Were you working with Blackwater?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
I was there doing some stuff, and I remember Gary Jackson. He showed me a photocopy of a check for $1 billion, and it was signed Donald Rumsfeld or something to that effect. Yeah. He goes, Ernie, I want to show this to you because this is a once in a lifetime thing. And he shows me this piece of paper. I'm going, holy shit.
Yeah.
That was when they were all ramping up, and I was kind of there for
I mean, the last big talk that I had was with Gary. We'd come back from Africa. I mean, I just took one of the other, I had 1 KIA, 3 walking wounded, and another, the team 18 Delta, or the 18 Delta that was with those folks, I had to took him into surgery, and I'm doing a splenectomy on a guy, repaired his liver in one of the French hospitals in Burkina Faso. And the 18 Delta that was on that team, his junior was, because your purview as an 18 Delta, I'm not, although you do your surgical residency to graduate, you do the five surgeries as you're the head surgeon, 5 is the assistant surgeon, 5 is the anesthesiologist, 5 is the inside circulator, and then 5 surgeries is the outside circulator, or first assistants. And so you have that experience, but it just bringing that to the table and doing it, because I knew the guy was going to die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so Gary was like, okay, so explain to me, son, why as a nationally registered paramedic are you doing surgery on and I was able to articulate myself, but that's kind of always who I've been as a 18 Delta kind of, SF guy, CT guy, or wherever, having that, okay, this is what we're doing, this is what's going to happen, and here's how the fuck we're going to fucking do it. That's how, and I've always been that, been that way. So,
we've always treated our business in the same way, Eric, because that's all we knew, right?
Right.
I mean, I was still, I was working with some of your counterparts.
Yeah.
While I started Spartan Blades, I didn't pay myself for the first 3 years.
Yeah, I haven't paid myself in years.
But we always treated it like a mission. We said, okay, what is it we want to do? Here's the mission, right? We developed 3 courses of action, pick the best one, which was usually a hybrid, eliminate all our risks. But even at that point, I think anybody have ever known a knife industry, at some point they said, hey, here we go. That's
it's a crapshoot.
Companies. And man, it's scary, but man, if it works out, it's fucking rewarding too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I've had fun. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know we've talked a lot about the last 2 podcasts we've been on. We've discussed kind of the darker underbelly of the industry.
There's a lot of scammers and liars, and people will steal your money. They won't deliver.
Well, listen, I think you got the best advice from Ernie tonight is the fact that you gotta attach yourself to the people that are good for you, and you gotta really detach yourself from the viruses that are going to infect you. So, Muff, thanks for the donation. Also, Ernie, I love your knives, bro. Just bought my first one last week.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. I can make that payment on the mortgage now.
Hey, go look in the comments for Sabo, SZABO. Sabo, ask that question, brother. I missed it. He asked a question to ask Ernie. on a video I did, and I totally missed it. So Sabo, if you're in the chat, brother, ask, and Joe, if you'll pick that up.
Yeah, if I don't see it yet, but if he asks again, I'll look it up and put it in there. I'll put it in there.
So just to ask you, Curtis, what your thoughts are. I mean, I'm sure partnering with K-Bar is, it's just open all kinds. I mean, I've heard you say it too on video that it just opened doors for you as far as really cost effective ways to make handles or I mean, do you see it as this long-term thing for Spartan or
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The
reason we teamed up with K-Bar is because they've been around 125 years.
Yeah.
When you think military, you think K-Bar. I don't know if we would have did the deal with anyone else. And anybody who knows John Stitt, president of K-Bar, he's as good as they come. He's a family member as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
He's always been a straight shooter. I mean, he's helped other knife companies out for nothing.
Just to help them out.
Yeah.
Recently, I can tell you, he shipped steel to a guy recently because he's a U.S. maker and he wants things to work out.
Yeah, I got you.
The other thing people don't realize is K-Bar's parent company is Cutco.
Yeah.
And they're the largest manufacturer of cutlery in North America.
Right.
Mark and I, we did a military career, and then I worked as a contractor for a good long time again. And, I just turned 60. So, when do you stop? And we weren't sure what the answer to that was, but we knew we didn't want Spartan blades to go away. I mean, there's a point Mark and I could have just cashed out, sold everything we had direct to consumer, turned off all our dealers, took all that cash, and probably did all right. But, it's like Ernie said, if you love the shit, it's hard to let go. And I wanted to know that when I'm not around anymore, that the Spartan Blades is going to live on. Someone's going to take care of it. Somebody who gives a shit about manufacturing, somebody who truly loves knives. And I felt K-Bar, they were the ones. I mean, they're why I'm still in this, because it made me love it again.
Yeah.
When you've got a company like that backing you, there's not a whole lot of stress points,
Yeah, no,
the biggest fear of doing something like that is somebody coming in. It's not like they send guys down here in suits and tell us what to do. They're like, guys keep going to company. We're just going to leave you alone. Keep doing good things. And like I said, we learn things from them about packaging and warehousing and how to make things and make things in numbers. And but I like to think it's reciprocal. We're teaching them things as well. We're all learning from each other as a family. I mean, they pulled out of China. Do you know what it costs to do that? You want to talk about a company, investing in America? K-Bar did it, and they did it recently. And they're also building more capability through state and unions. We're showing them how to make tooling. They have robots, dude. They're scary. They almost look like humans. It's crazy.
Yeah.
For the kitchen cutlery stuff. But they want to do more American-made, niche type stuff. So, I mean, they've got guys now that are hand-making knives in the back of the K-Bar shop. They're cutlers are learning how to do it all over.
That's cool. And because even with some of the convex stuff, the robots, that's where it's at.
Right.
That's
so if you ask John, we're learning from him. K-Bar's learn from us. We're learning from them. Yep. And I joke, they're probably the only company I would have did a deal with, because my first knife was a K-Bar. I was a Marine. That was in the easy to do category for me. But like Ernie said, man, there's not many people like that.
Yeah,
I've seen some big companies come in and buy some niche guys and just destroy it. It's horrible.
Yeah, that's not what I want. Like Marvin over at Blue Ridge, he introduced me
He's great.
to good dude. I think I've heard him say like 3 words, but he introduced me to K-Bar, but they never responded to my emails, because I have a design that I call the MKB, the modern K-Bar. And and it's not that I'm selling it to you. It's just something that's always, it's a good blade, dude. And I liked it. I was kind of like, fuck, man. I really thought that they would respond, but it never had. You know, who was I at the time? You know, so
yeah. Sabo, this is Sabo's comment, Scab. So basically, this is Sabo's comment. I used to have a Kandahar back when I was a poor grunt, and I had to sell it. Will Ernie consider making them again?
You know, one thing I've learned is to never say never, because it always comes back and bites me in the rear end at some point. That don't hold your breath, but there is a possibility. I think I have. God, I shouldn't say this. I think I have about 20 of them sitting in a box that aren't finished.
No.
So,
Wow.
Strong, maybe. Let's just say that.
Let me say this. Sabo is the reason my son has a Vindicator.
Oh, really?
He's the reason. So if you do happen, I want to purchase a Kandahar for him. So if that happens, that's on me, because he's the reason my son carries a Vindicator.
You got to do it, Ernie. You got to do it.
I know. Well, you know what? The squeaky wheel gets the grease, and let's see if I can grease something up here. Just don't hold your breath.
There is a chance. There's a chance.
There's a thing that happened way back when I started being a custom maker, and the guys, they tagged me with it, but we stuck with it. It's called Emerson time. It doesn't conform to any normal time frame in this universe. It's against the laws of physics. So just don't hold your breath. But like I said,
let me ask you this, and I know we're running a little long, and we can wrap it when you guys are ready. But let me ask you this, and we asked you a little bit last time you were on. How difficult is it to make that decision when you make a run of knives and you go, okay, I'm moving on? Is it at a point now where you're like, this is business, fam, or is there a lot of thought to it? Does that make sense?
Are you talking to me, Scab? Or?
Yeah, Ernie, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Your comms are coming through a little cloudy on me.
Well, let me re-ask. When you make that decision to move on from a design, is that a difficult process for you?
No, it isn't. In fact, it's kind of inevitable, just because I really, this is no exaggeration. I have over 2,000 designs that I've put together over the years. And because we were small, when we put a knife into our catalog, I had to take a knife out because I did not want to be, if you look at a Swiss Army knife catalog, there's like 500 different knives, and all the thing is different as one has a toothpick and one doesn't, or whatever. And it's just a sea of sameness. And I never wanted it to be that. I wanted to keep our knives distinct and different in our line. And so when I would move one in, I'd have to move one out. So the thing is that because we're small, I'm able to say, hey, let's take that model XYZ and let's bring it back. It's been gone for 10 years. Let's bring it back again. Because that's just us. That's just me. So the answer is no, it's not hard. And it's not a lot of soul searching or anything like that. It's just a matter of, man, I want to make the next knife or the next model or whatever. So if that makes sense.
I've heard the same thing with you. I know a couple of yours have now been retired.
Yeah, no, it's easy to turn them off. You just don't make them anymore until the dealers are not available. But it's but you got to be careful when you introduce a new one. We've actually introduced knives that killed off other knives that were selling well. So you got to be careful, But I'll tell you what's difficult is every time we switch steel, man. People are like, "Why don't you just go from S45 to MagnaCut?" I'm like, because I just finished all the S45 price list and my photographs and changing it on the website. And then MagnaCut came out of nowhere. To me, I'm like, Mark sits at a desk with a PC. He's got a lot of white paper. I've got an Apple. It looks like a unicorn puked in here. So I do all the art stuff. That crushes me, man, when we change steel. Every laser file, every photograph, every price list. Those are the kind of things that get me. Turning a knife off, the sales start to dip, because I think most knives they have a life, right?
Okay.
Now some will amaze you. I mean, that Defensa we made for the Canadian Army, it's always been a top seller. And I don't think we can ever turn it off if we want to.
No.
Enyo is probably
can't.
the least profit we make on any knife. But if I turn that off, it'd be like it'd be company suicide. So and Ernie will tell you things sell great for a while, and then people want the next best thing from Ernie Emerson, then you make that. Yeah. I think turning them off it's kind of easy. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could just call them special edition while supplies last. I mean,
Oh, you know what people want? Ernie probably tests this. Well, Eric and Ernie both. Pete, the customers want what you don't have. That's what they always want. They never call and say, "What do you got on the shelf? I'll take it."
Ernie, a lot of the Emerson people coming out of the woodwork in this live. I just bought an Emerson Combat Fire from Blade Van, previously owned by the Shutter Dog. Doug, he makes some awesome custom scales for my Carter. So, yeah, everybody's joining in. I'm glad to see everybody kind of joining in the conversation, and I thank you guys because you know what it is. I wish Greg was in the room when he to hear this too. I thank you guys for your perseverance in keeping it American, and it's a lot of work to stay, in business and keep the business going through all the tides, the highs and lows, and sticking with it and sticking to your morals and your values and staying, especially Eric. I know what you're going through.
Yeah,
you guys have been doing it for decades, so it's and I thank you guys, and I compliment you guys for sticking with it. With the American way. With the knives.
Well, can I do two things? Number one, I want to just say this. I think the American people are ready to bust loose now that this BS is behind us.
Yeah.
That 18 or 20%, I'm telling you right now, my look at this is that's going to be a long gone in the rearview mirror, about 3 or 4 months.
You're right.
They're going to bust loose. And the other thing is that if I can I show you the shirt that I wore to the polling place when I cast my vote? Because I got it on.
Yeah. Absolutely. Bring him up, Joe.
Wait, all right, hold on. Let me try to get you in.
The reason we have guns is to stop the government from taking our guns away.
So there. Yeah. And that's when I wore, and nobody had and of course I'm registered in Colorado. So, but wow. Real cool. And I got a lot of kind of winks and nods over that. So
that's cool.
We're bust loose. Cool. I have so much faith in the American economy and the American people and the American spirit. And the fact that we wouldn't have this opportunity if it wasn't for you guys, putting your lives on the line, putting your personal lives on hold for months and years at a time, just to protect guys like me, to be able to pursue our dreams and raise families in safety. Thank you all. Really, thank you guys. And thank to all the veterans that really step up and do the right thing and protect this country. So
absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, Ernie.
Amen, Ernie. Amen.
Joey?
Yes.
I think it's that time, buddy.
It's about that time. Guys, I'm speechless, man. I enjoyed this better than I've enjoyed any show we've ever done. And I know we've done shows with you individually, but putting you guys all in a room together, that's a lot. That's saying something, man. That was a lot of fun. This was a lot of fun. But I think in some capacity we should kind of do this again someday. I think it's a great information basis to communicate your side of things to the American consumer. And I saw so much pride in the chat room, so many people stepping up saying what they sacrifice to be able to only buy American knives.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to hear people say that. And that's just people who show passion for basically, wanting to own American. And they are out there, Eric. They are out there. So you just got to find a way to get going. I hope you networked enough where you can kind of get your thing going, because I believe in your product, Eric. And I think that
I appreciate that, man.
To get going, because I think you have an amazing, amazing product. So I'm hoping that something came out of this as well.
Yeah.
Hope you guys in the chat room and everybody that's going to watch this on replays is going to get a lot out of it. I enjoyed this incredibly. And I can't tell you how much Scab and I appreciate each and every one of you spending so much time with us. on these Blade Talks, and we would love to definitely do this again. And an invitation to you guys. I spoke to Ernie about it earlier. The holidays are coming. If you guys you have anything coming up, any special things that you're basically offering for the holidays, let us know, please. We'll set up some shows and try to get your information out there as much as we can.
Yeah, I appreciate it, dude. And I just want to say to the guys that are in the chat rooms now, I can't see the questions, but if you have questions for us or for me specifically, just go ahead and put it, because I'll go back in and reread and answer everything.
Put it in the comments,
in the next few days or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you know, so the customers know that we are our website is, the store is getting revamped over the next few days, and will be finished up, and we're going to have a veterans through Black Friday sale that's like 25% off on everything, and then all the way with your military and law enforcement and first responder discount, that'll be all the way up to 40% off. Then we'll have the Cyber Monday sale, which is be down to 20, and then 35, and then all the way out to Christmas Eve. So that's my goal, is to sell pretty much everything that we have. Good. If we can, or as much as we can. So I want to be able to bring
I think you will, and we'll let us know.
We'll share that individually too.
Yeah, and I appreciate that.
We'll share that.
All the mugs and the merch and everything else. There's all kinds of bonuses, and if you buy a sec, it's just I think the guys will be really, really happy. So, but Ernie, thank you very, very much. Curtis, I appreciate it. Greg, I know he's not in the house right now, but hey, shout out, Joe, Scab, you guys are all I can say is it's thank you. I'm humble just being here with these cats, So other than that, Phobos, FOBOS.com. Easy day.
Well, did you tell the guys here what Phobos stands for?
It's for operators by operators, baby.
There you go.
Right.
There you go. There you go.
What it's for.
We haven't figured out.
Detroit Fubu for us by us.
Okay. All right, fellas. Let's put an end to this chat room. We still got a packed chat. Everybody, a lot of people still in the room, and we sincerely appreciate you guys being here with us. Holidays are coming. We'll definitely be doing some holiday shows, hopefully with whoever wants to join up. And thanks, guys. Thanks for being in the room. Thanks for joining us on Blade Talk. This is an epic one. Gentlemen, stay in the room after I end the stream. And have a great night, guys, and we'll see you very soon.
Thank you all.
Awkward pause while we end.